You're watching BBC World News with me, Tim Wilcox. The headlines. The Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny has been remanded in custody for 30 days. He was arrested just hours after returning to Moscow for the first time since being poisoned last year. Mr. Navalny has called for street protests. The rate of coronavirus infections has begun to fall in the UK as a result of new lockdown measures. In the past 24 hours, less than 40,000 new cases have been recorded, the lowest number so far this year. The FBI is vetting all 25,000 National Guard troops in Washington, providing security for Wednesday's inauguration of Joe Biden. They're looking for possible right-wing links to extremists. And the World Health Organization has warned that we are on the brink of a catastrophe of moral failure over the way vaccines are shared.
Stocks ended the day lower and lost ground for the week. The Dow Jones Industrials fell 177 points to close at 30,814. The Nasdaq Composite lost 114 points. The S&P 500 fell 27. For the week, both the Nasdaq and S&P dropped 1.5%. The Dow lost nearly 1%. Markets fell after President-elect Joe Biden unveiled his $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan late Thursday. One stock analyst said investors weren't really thrown off by the package, having expected a large number. And the latest government data suggests a slowing economic recovery. Retail sales fell 0.7% in December, the third straight monthly decline. Shares of J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup all fell Friday. The banks reported better than expected quarterly profits, but also declining revenue. And ExxonMobil stock fell 4.8%. We report that the Securities and Exchange Commission launched an investigation into the energy giant after an employee filed a whistleblower complaint last fall. A quick programming note: we'll be off Monday for the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. We'll be back on Tuesday.
We start this hour with another worrisome confirmation here in Japan. 3 people have been found to be infected with the British variant of the coronavirus, despite not traveling to Britain or coming in contact with anyone known to be infected.
We have confirmed 3 cases of the new coronavirus variant reported in Britain. The patients have no record of traveling to Britain and have not been confirmed to have had contact with patients who were in the country.
Health Ministry officials on Monday announced the infections of 3 people in their 20s to 60s in Shizuoka Prefecture, central Japan. This is the first time that people who've not been to Britain recently or whose infection routes are unclear have been confirmed to be infected with the variant. The head of the National Institute of Infectious Diseases, Wakita Takaji, said the infection routes are being traced and that the cases suggest possible spreading of the variant. Staying with Japan, where the regular diet session opened on Monday. In his first policy speech at a regular session since taking office, Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide stressed the government's continued efforts to fight the coronavirus.
I'm deeply sorry that the government has to ask people to live under restrictions again. Now I call for everyone's cooperation to overcome the difficulties. I myself shall be on the front line of the fight against the virus.
Suga said the government aims to revise the special law to enhance the effectiveness of antivirus measures. He said the legislation will include support for dining establishments to make sure that they comply with requests for shorter business hours. Penalties are also on the table for those who don't follow the guidelines. He added that vaccines will play a central role in bringing the virus under control, suggesting that a rollout could begin by late February after screenings for safety and effectiveness. Suga also touched on the Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games postponed to this summer because of COVID.
I am determined to hold the Games to send hope and courage to the rest of the world.
He said the Games will be proof of humanity's victory over the virus. Meanwhile, Suga's battling his own falling support ratings as critics say his government's response to the virus has been too slow. Japan confirmed more than 4,900 new cases across the country on Monday and 58 deaths. Russia has widened the scope of a domestically developed COVID-19 vaccination program to include inoculations for all citizens who want them. In the far eastern city of Vladivostok, many people visited a medical institution to receive their shots. The country started using the Sputnik V vaccine for medical workers, teachers, and some others in December. The inoculations that began on Monday widened the scope to all citizens 18 years or older, with some exceptions such as pregnant women.
I'm very tired of self-isolation. I got a vaccination to protect myself.
More than 3.5 million people have been infected with the coronavirus in Russia, and the pathogen keeps spreading. Concerns remain among many people about the safety and efficacy of the vaccine. Observers say the government hopes to promote the domestically made vaccine through the mass inoculations. Brazil has started administering a coronavirus vaccine developed by Chinese drug maker Sinovac Biotech. Healthcare workers in the city of São Paulo were the first to get shots on Sunday. Earlier in the day, Brazilian authorities approved emergency use of the Chinese vaccine and another made by British pharmaceutical firm AstraZeneca. Brazilian officials say Sinovac's version costs less than those developed by U.S. and European firms. They add that the vaccine has been tested for safety. The government says it wants to expand its vaccination program, but it has not secured enough doses for the entire population, which numbers more than 200 million. About 8.4 million people in Brazil have contracted the virus so far. The death toll has surpassed 200,000. Data compiled by Johns Hopkins University in the U.S. shows that the global tally of confirmed cases now exceeds 95 million. The global death toll has reached more than 2 million. Joe Biden is to be sworn in as the 46th President of the United States on Wednesday. Biden plans to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord and make various other policy changes using his executive authority upon his inauguration. Incoming White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield commented in an ABC TV interview on Sunday.
President-elect Biden, then President Biden, is going to come into office and take decisive steps to roll back some of the most egregious moves of the Trump administration. You're going to see him make movement on racial equity, and you're going to see him make movement on climate.
Biden's incoming chief of staff, Ron Klain, listed the plans in a memo to senior White House staff, saying Biden will sign executive directives on some 10 steps during his first day in office to deal with major challenges. The planned actions include the return of the U.S. to the Paris Agreement, lifting the U.S. travel ban on several Muslim-majority countries, and issuing a mask mandate for interstate travel. The memo says Biden's other plans for his first 10 days include extending a pause on student loan payments and expanding coronavirus testing. South Korean President Moon Jae-in says wartime issues with Japan should be resolved diplomatically. Moon mentioned those referred to as comfort women and people who say they or their relatives were forced to work for Japanese firms during World War II. Moon's remarks at his New Year press conference come after a South Korean court ruled earlier this month that the people referred to as comfort women should be compensated. The court ordered the Japanese government to pay about $91,000 to each of the 12 plaintiffs. The Japanese government says any right to claims was settled completely and finally in 1965 when Japan and South Korea normalized ties. In 2015, the governments of Japan and South Korea reached an agreement that the issue involving the women had been resolved finally and irreversibly.
The South Korean government acknowledges that the 2015 agreement was an official agreement between the two governments. On such a basis, the two nations should hold consultations to find a solution that the plaintiffs who received the ruling this time can agree to.
이렇게 협의를 해나가겠습니다.
Moon also touched on the issue of wartime labor. South Korea's Supreme Court has ordered 2 Japanese companies to pay damages to the plaintiffs in those cases. The company's assets in South Korea have been seized and legal procedures for their sale are underway. Moon said forcibly selling the assets is undesirable for bilateral relations and that seeking a diplomatic solution should take precedence before any such sale. On North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Moon said he thinks Kim has a clear will for peace, dialogue, and denuclearization. Moon added that the upcoming launch of a new U.S. administration under President-elect Joe Biden offers an opportunity for a fresh start to inter-Korean talks. Staying with South Korea, Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman Lee Jae-yong has been sent back to prison after receiving a 2.5-year sentence in a retrial of a bribery case involving former President Park Geun-hye. The Seoul High Court on Monday convicted Lee of bribing the then president and her close confidant in exchange for help with the merger of 2 Samsung affiliates. The High Court said Lee offered Park and her longtime friend Choi Soon-sil more than about $7.8 million in bribes in response to Park's request. The amount of money considered bribes in the latest ruling was more than double that estimated in the earlier ruling. In 2017, the district court sentenced Lee to 5 years in prison, but he was released in a High Court ruling the next year. In 2019, the Supreme Court remanded the case for further proceedings. The imprisonment of the Samsung Group's heir raises concern over a possible negative impact on the management of South Korea's largest conglomerate. China's economy muscled through the coronavirus pandemic to post 2.3% growth in 2020. Analysts say it's probably the only major economy that managed to expand during the crisis-hit year. China's National Bureau of Statistics reported that the country's GDP grew 6.5% in the October to December quarter compared to the same period a year earlier. The economy has bounced back after it tanked from January to March as the coronavirus spread. Business activity resumed following the country's early success in containing the virus. Government stimulus led to greater investment in infrastructure. An additional boost came from a recovery in the auto sector, a key driver of the Chinese economy. But the annual growth rate of 2.3% marks a slowdown for the 3rd consecutive year. It's also the smallest expansion since 1976, when China's economy contracted. Analysts say China faces challenges, including an overheating property market and the recent resurgence of coronavirus infections in some parts of the country. A tropical cyclone is drifting toward Madagascar and southern Africa, posing the risks of flooding and landslides. Our meteorologist Sayaka Mori has the latest on the storm.
Hello there. Madagascar was hit by a Christmas cyclone and one more storm is expected to pound the island. We have Eloise and this system is expected to pound the northern areas on Wednesday. As a strong storm, we might see very strong winds as well as heavy rainfall that could lead to flooding. Some areas might see nearly 100 millimeters of rain. And after affecting Madagascar, Eloise is expected to head towards southern Africa as areas like Zimbabwe and also Mozambique could see stormy conditions during the weekend. Sunny weather over northern areas of Africa, including Marrakesh. Sunny weather and hot weather are possible in the south as well. Johannesburg at 30 degrees on your Tuesday. Blizzard conditions are expected to pound the Sea of Japan side of the country. Once again, we are looking at very strong winds as well. The combination of snow and winds could cause very low visibility, making for dangerous traveling conditions. Hokuriku could see nearly 70 centimeters of snow for the next 24 hours. More snow is likely. Gusts could be nearly 130 kilometers per hour. Not just that, we might see